Hey, this is Claire Johnston from Manga Groove, and you're listening to The Gareth Nelson Show.
All right, she's in the studio with me, so let's play one of the classic Manga grooves, and then we'll be getting to some great chatting. Such a classic, that Manga groove, and dance some more. And I'm actually so thrilled to be joined by the legend of South African music, Claire Johnston. She's in studio with me right now. Claire, how are you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me, Gareth.
It's an absolute privilege to have you, of course, and
Thank
to
you
chat to
so
someone
much.
like you. And we arranged this interview about a month ago, and I've been counting down the days to your arrival. And so
And
she's
here
finally
we
here.
are.
Claire, let's start. When did
Yes.
you decide to pursue a career in music?
You know, probably as early as the age of 10. I, at the age of 10, got into a show called Annie. I saw an ad in the paper, and I'd always been praised for singing. I think at the age of 3 or 4, I did the only solo in the nursery school concert, and everyone sort of loved when I sang. So obviously I liked pleasing people, I liked the praise. And then one day, looking at the paper with my mum, look, there's this ad for this show, little girls between the age of 6 and 14, and my mother just was desperate that I don't go and audition, because she just thought I was never going to get in. I mean, I'm this little girl with, I've had no training. Anyway, the long and the short is I got into the show, and we toured around the country. The whole experience lasted probably a year, so the bug really bit then, and I just decided it's what I want to do. And my mum took it very seriously, and so did my stepdad. And, it was just sort of decided then that I was probably going to be able to do this, and I was encouraged to do this. And, that's how it began for me, certainly.
Well, I'm glad you did, and I'm sure many others are too, because you have a fantastic voice, I
Thank
must
you
say.
so much. I'm mostly glad. I have days where I think, it'd be nice to be a chartered accountant today. but mostly,
Certainly not.
but mostly I sort of, I do enjoy what I do, and I'm grateful for what I do.
And then tell us about Manga Groove. Obviously, I mean,
Yes.
this is, how did you guys get together? How did the whole project start, as it were?
The initial thing with Manga Groove had absolutely nothing to do with me. John Layden, the founding member, and also my ex-husband, I might add, and very good friend, he had a punk band called Pet Frog.
Okay.
But he had grown up listening to penny whistle music, like Spokes Mashinani
Yes.
and the likes. And I think one day he bumped into a penny whistler in town somewhere and asked him to join the band. And the band sort of transmogrified, if that's the right word, into a sort of Kwela Marabi sort of thrash band, which became Manga Groove. And it started off without a vocalist. It was, I think, about a 6-piece. There was no drummer, there was no vocalist. And in fact, when I first saw the band, I was going to a Wits Free People's concert in my final year of school. A bunch of us girls went. And by the time I managed to get to the front of the stage, and I think I told you this story before, I hope I'm not repeating myself.
Please go ahead.
Manga Groove was on stage, and I just remember thinking, they're really excellent, but where's the singer? Because two of the guys took turns at sort of chucking in little vocal phrases.
Yes.
But I mean, me being a singer, for me, it's all about the singer. So where's the singer? Little did I know that a few months later, I would be that person.
Yes.
Which is quite cool.
And I mean, you guys are still going to this day. I mean, how
Very
is
much
has it
so.
changed a lot since the start?
Well, bear in mind, I mean, I joined when I was at school when I joined the band. I was incredibly young, incredibly shy, actually, for all my aspirations of being this wonderful singer. I was going through a very shy phase, but the guys, how I got into the band was one of the guys phoned my singing teacher and asked for her quote-unquote best female singer. She sent me. I met them all. It was all very casual, and I didn't hear from them. And then I think a month later, John phoned and said, can you rehearse tonight, and tomorrow we have a gig on Saturday? And I, what? But my mum was very nice about it. Absolutely. So John fetched me in his old blue VW bug, and off we went to town and rehearsed. And yes, so that was in 1985.
Amazing,
and
yeah.
now we are in 2018, and in some ways we're having more fun now than ever. The band's been through various incarnations. I think about 4 of us go back to the 80s. But we've had people pass on. When I joined the band, I was the baby. Mickey Vilakazi was 64.
Sure, amazing.
Everyone else was much older than me.
Yes.
So I'm now probably one of the oldest members of the band, which is kind of great.
And in terms of like pursuing a solo career or going that way, I
Yes.
mean, have you thought about that?
I've done bits and pieces.
I know you, but I mean, it's always been,
Yes.
it's the association with Manga Groove rather has remained throughout.
It has, and I have to be honest, it did bother me in the beginning. I mean, I spent a lot of time. Oh, let me think back. My first solo album was recorded 15 years after I joined the band,
Wow.
which is a long time.
It is,
so I
it is.
waited a long time to do it. And when I did do it, I put my heart and soul into it. It was recorded in London and in South Africa. I worked with all sorts of amazing people, Real World Studios, studios in London. It was an incredible experience. My expectations were through the roof. And what I was forgetting through all of this is that people probably wanted me to sound like Claire from Mango Groove.
Exactly.
And it was very difficult. And for me also to get the message through that Mango Groove hadn't broken up. I was just trying something different.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need to do that. So that was a bit demoralizing. But, you know, to be honest, I've tried another couple of solo projects.
Yes.
They're fun. I will probably try another few. But Mango's
please
my
do.
musical. Thank you very much. I'll definitely keep you posted.
Yeah, please.
But Mango is my musical home. Definitely, it's become that.
It's your family almost.
It is. It has become that very much so. I've grown up in Mango Groove. I mean, to the extent that I've grown up, I plan on remaining a little bit of a child for most of my life, and hopefully in the
Nothing
right
wrong
sort
with
of ways.
Youthful
yes.
exuberance, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then some career highlights with Mango Groove over the
Yeah.
years. I mean, what's things that stood out for you? I'm sure there's plenty, but what's things that stand
There
out?
are. I mean, I guess the first sorts of things that stand out are, you know, I'm going to give you silly things now,
No,
not
please.
the big ones, but the first time you hear yourself on radio, you
Yeah.
get playlisted,
Yeah, yeah.
that was major. I mean, I was
Yes, of
probably
course.
18 and you know, just gobsmacked.
Yes.
Couldn't quite believe it. And is that what I sound like? And all of that sort of thing. And the first time you sell out a really big venue, because, you know, we started up, we cut our teeth, we really did pay our dues. We cut our teeth in tiny little clubs, restaurants, crammed onto the stage. And as the band got bigger, because we started to add more and more people, we added a drummer. We added, after the recording of that very first album, the one that got released in '89, we needed backing vocalists. So
Yes.
then we became an 11-piece. We could no longer do the small clubs, but but we were also able to do the bigger shows.
Yes.
So those were big deals. Those were heady days. The first time you sell out a venue where, you know, you've got a 2,000 capacity or something. It's a huge deal.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, you're traveling nationally. That was a big deal. Then traveling internationally was a big deal. So the first big international gig we did was Rock Against Racism in Paris.
Oh, wow.
That was huge. And it was raining and the crowd didn't know our music. We'd been played a little bit on French radio. But during Special Star, the umbrellas were going up and down. You know, it was a huge audience. That was a big deal. And then, of course, the very emotional stuff, like the inauguration of Nelson Mandela in '94.
And historic as well, of
That-
course, yeah.
You know, much more than a musical
Yes,
thing.
absolutely.
That's history. And
Yes.
then another one was, of course, the handover of Hong Kong to China.
I mean that's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
in
wow.
'97, to be part of that, where you realize what music can be to people
Yes.
and what it can be part of.
Yes, yes.
It's like that's a very special thing for us.
And then on the other side of that question, regrets, things that you
Regrets.
could change or could do differently.
Well, you know, there are little regrets and there are the big regrets, and what you realize over time as you get older and hopefully wiser is that everything feeds into where you are now. And if you ultimately look back and you look at where you are now and you think, I'm mostly happy, then you have to be generally sort of philosophical about the whole thing.
Yes, yes.
But no, there were things like Madonna's manager wanted to sign us and we went with someone else. Sometimes I think, wow, imagine we're stuck with Seymour Stein. That might have gone well, but you just don't know.
You don't know, yeah.
May have just not
The
worked
gift of
out at all.
hindsight, yes.
Likewise, Queen's manager.
Yes.
We were managed by him for a while, Jim Beach. And then we released the Another Country album, and he just felt we'd changed direction and he didn't like it. Those sorts of things. But at the time, you did the right thing. You know,
You can only go on instinct,
you
isn't
could
it?
go on
I mean,
instinct at the
absolutely.
time and advise. You have advisors and you have management. You take their advice, and that's how it goes.
That's how it goes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, Claire, we're going to continue this chat a little bit more. We're going to play one of Manga Groove's most famous songs, of course.
I think I know where you're going to go with this one.
Which one
Might
is
it
it?
start with the letter S?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the defining tracks for me, anyway.
Okay,
And then we
great.
will be playing some of the brand new music as well.
Fantastic.
So this is, of course, Manga Groove Special Star. Fantastic song there. That is really part of the, how can I call it, the history of South Africa. It's part of the South African culture, the identity. We were chatting while that song was playing about the politics of South Africa, but I wanted to ask Claire now about the politics of music in South Africa. So what do you think of the current state of South African music?
I'm a little bit out of touch because I kind of do what I do with Manga Groove, and you know, we're lucky enough to get lots of nice, interesting gigs. My impression, though, is that there's a lot of amazing talent that's out there. I think people are battling with venues. I don't think there are enough venues.
Yes.
Which I think is a real problem. The politics of it, I mean, bear in mind the industry has changed globally, so that will have impacted on us hugely. So in some ways it's a good thing. Artists can be more in charge of their own careers now. They can get their own music out there. You don't have to go through a record label anymore the way, when we started out that you had to. So that's a good thing, but at the same time it's difficult to get radio play.
Yeah. Very.
There's a funny sort of low self-esteem thing, I think, around South African music, which really annoys me, because South African talent is epic. We've got incredible talent. We're just not showcasing it enough. There aren't enough platforms. I guess that's the word. The word is platform, be it radio, be it TV. There's not enough, support, in my opinion.
And what do you think of the rise of social media and all that with regards to music? Do you think it's a good or bad thing?
It's meant to have helped, and I think it does to some extent. It does mean you can publicize yourself, but I'm afraid traditional media is still the way to get people on social media aware of you. How else are you going to get people aware of you? You can't just get onto social media and suddenly become an instant phenomenon. You've got to get via other means, which often involve traditional media to get to those platforms.
Of course.
So, it's a bit difficult.
And here's an interesting question for you, because I always think like this about music, especially. If Manga Groove had to start right now, how do you think it would have been? Do you think you would have the impact that you had back then?
Probably not in South Africa, but probably globally, I think. Or potentially globally, not probably. That's a bit arrogant. Back in the day with Manga starting out, it was, you just didn't get international releases. In fact, when we first started to get some international interest, they battled to sort of sell us because we were a mixed race band, and this was pre the end of apartheid. So we got 2 record deals. No, 3. Two, one in America, one in Europe, 2 in Europe. And in fact in the Far East, and then they just didn't know what to do with us. They sort of wanted to put us on the college circuit, but it didn't know how to sell us. So that was tough. Whereas now that would be much, much easier.
Yes.
But here, no, we wouldn't make the impact that we made then, because in the mid-'80s, it was very unusual for black and white musicians to be seen performing together, especially as I was the only female and I happened to be white. And, it was a mixed-race band. It was attention grabbing.
Yes.
But that wasn't why we did it. We did it because the music kind of called for this sort of mix of people.
As it should. I mean, that's what music's about. It brings people together.
That's right.
Do you think that there's a sort of stigma attached to sort of, can I call it, South Africa and music coming from this country, that people should have a sort of certain sound to them, can I say like a Manga Groove or a Johnny Clegg, that's the kind of music that people overseas expect to come from this country? Or do you think it's changed now and evolved?
I think it's changed. I think it is the world stage now. I think you've got a lot of the younger bands who can travel, and they're sort of electronic bands and rock bands, and they can get out there and do their thing. And I don't think there's a huge expectation for them to sound South African, but I think what they need to do is they need to go and base themselves there.
Yes.
I think, if you're going to remain true to your South African roots, it's more difficult because you are South African, and that's kind of part of who you are.
And that's my next question for you. I mean, what do you think about the state of world music now, the shift in trends, genres, etc.?
Yes.
What is popular now? What do you feel about
Again,
currently?
I'm horribly out of touch. I go through phases where I put my head in the sand. But I'm always dimly aware of what's going on. And there are always great songs being written. But what I like is real music, live music. I mean, I'm sounding like a real Luddite here. What I want to know is that whatever I'm hearing can be done live. I want to know that I can go and see that band, and they're not going to be lip syncing.
Well said.
Because you can write all the brilliant songs in the world, but I want to know that whatever the performance is real, that's genuine.
Absolutely.
And not smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
But maybe I'm old school. I don't know, but the pendulum swings one way and then it swings back the other way.
Yeah, no, true.
And there's always room for good live music. So there's still great live stuff. So I'm really just having a moan about that there's too much.
I mean, it's
too much fakery and too much grunting and
absolutely.
baby, and I'm
Absolutely.
really sounding like Mother Grundy.
No. I agree with you. So I mean, if I agree with you, I'm sure others do too.
Okay, good.
It absolutely, it's a very good point that you make there, because there is a lot of this sort of, especially because of we living in this technology-driven society. So music, of course, has become technology-driven as well, as it would.
And I get all of that. And we use tracks on stage. I mean, there are 11 of us, but we need, we can't have 20 of us. So we have some tracks running just to bolster the sound. We can do it without the tracks, and we often do, but the tracks just give it that, make it sound exactly like the album with the live stuff going on. I think what I'm also battling with is it's just that everything these days has got to be headline grabbing. You've got to just put yourself out there being kind of, I don't know, a little bit, I don't know, out there in, I think, the wrong way.
Almost controversial.
It's like you've got to just grab the headlines, and I mean, where's the music and all of that?
Exactly, and it should be about the music, isn't it?
Be.
Yes. And okay, so somebody comes to you, even let's say me. I come to you and I say, Claire, I want to be a musician. What would your advice to me be, or any musician? What would you say to them? Would you recommend doing it, or would you say stay away? Or?
I would.
It's not worth it.
If I had a child, I've often thought, if I had a child, would I encourage the child? And the answer is I don't really know. So back to your question, would I encourage you? I would probably say yes. I would say it's wonderful. It's a wonderful career. I'm a big believer in that you must do something you're passionate about. But for goodness sake, keep your wits about you. Maybe get a business degree so that you know how to manage your money, manage your manager sometimes, manage the people around you, so that you know what's going on. Don't just blindly go in and trust everybody, because it's a business. It is. And we forget absolutely. That because it's something that's creative or touchy-feely. Oh, let's just do this for the love. Yes. It isn't. It's a big money-making industry, and if you're the creative talent behind it, you should be earning a lot of the money. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Musicians cannot live on moonbeams and dreams of unicorns, and the understanding that they got to number one on the charts last week.
Yes,
you cannot live on that.
No.
I'm afraid. No, so I would just caution someone to be very sensible with.
And practical about it.
To be practical.
But it is that balance between the, as you say, the creative aspect of it and being pragmatic as well. And it's so difficult to do that.
And very often creative people aren't.
No.
They're not. They're just living in their dream, and that's wonderful. We need people like that, but they often get hurt.
And that's the other thing I wanted to ask you. I mean, would you advise people to build up a sort of a resistance to rejection, rather? I mean, because
definitely develop a bit of a thick skin, and be original. Be original. And it's difficult these days. Very often people want. I've seen with some of the younger bands, they pad their set with covers, and there's a sense that they have to. And I would say, phase them out.
Yes.
Be true to yourself. Develop a sound, and stick to it. No one's going to get you immediately. You're going to have to be. You're going to have to just be resolute and believe in yourselves.
Well, all those young artists listening out there, I hope that's fantastic advice.
I hope it is.
We're going to chat to Claire past the hour. She very kindly offered to stay a little bit longer for us. So thank you, Claire. But we'll have the midday business report at 1 o'clock after these. That was one of Claire's solo songs she did. It's a cover there. It was called If You Go Away. Absolutely beautiful as well.
Thank you.
Claire, I wanted to ask you, so how did you go about building your career? Was it all about getting on the radio? Was it about the commercial? What was it about?
With Manga, it was about performing live. And then shortly after I joined the band, we got a recording deal. And we were on the radio fairly quickly. We had a single called Two Hearts.
Yes.
It was first played on radio. And the entire album didn't ever get released. I think the record company went bankrupt, so we were back to square one, but we'd had some radio play. But for us, it was always about getting out live and performing. And then, as I said earlier, starting off in the little clubs, and then moving on to bigger venues, and then starting to tour nationally.
Yes.
And by the time we finally did we did another recording of the album that we'd already recorded that didn't get released. By the time that album came out, or by the time we'd recorded those versions of the songs, we were very well road tested. People were aware of us, and we'd almost created a market for ourselves over those years, because it was 4 years of gigging before that first album that did so well came out, and no one was more surprised than we were when that thing exploded.
And just sort of took a life of its own, as it were. It
did. I'll never forget, we had a launch, and then the next day it was being played on every single radio station. And in those days, there were very few radio stations.
Yes.
There were a handful, and every single one was playing us. So we were so lucky at that time. Everyone was forced to hear us because we were playing to everybody. So that's kind of how it worked out for us. And at the same time, we also made some really good music videos for Dance and More Special Star Hellfire.
Yes.
And we also had the Coca-Cola commercials.
Yes.
We wrote and performed the commercial. And that got us into cinemas. It got us into people's homes. It was like a total onslaught for poor South Africans. There was no escape.
And with regards to like being a musician now, is there any other careers within the arts that you would have liked to have pursued or would pursue?
Actress.
Yes.
It's still something I would like to pursue if I'm brave enough to risk it. The other thing, I mean, part of that acting thing is I'd love to voice children's characters. Love to sort of, be a voice for a cartoon or, just that side of things. I'd have so much fun with it.
So why not pursue it?
That's a very good idea. I'd probably have to find the right sort of agent.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're right. Put myself on someone's books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I can do funny voices and, scary voices, silly voices.
Yeah.
I like being silly. Silly is becoming one of the most important things to me.
Well, I think it's important to have a sense of humour, isn't it? I mean, especially in these time of day. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness, you do. Absolutely.
And when you look back on the Manga Groove experience and your music career as a whole, what would you like to say you'd like your legacy to be? What would you like to look back on it and say, well, that's what we left?
I would like to think that we'd made people feel good. That sounds cheesy, but I do mean it.
Isn't that what it should be about at the end of the day?
Yes. If I can have made people feel good on a bad day, if they can put on a Manga Groove album and it lifts their spirits, I can think of no better legacy. And as well as maybe, making people think differently about how they view things. I know when we first started to perform, a lot of people were amazed to see black and white people on stage together.
Yes.
And it helped change people's perceptions. That has meant a lot to me. We've had experiences where people have come up to us after a show with tears saying, I feel differently about my country now. I feel like this is possible. And, I don't think we should ever forget how polarized we were as black and white South Africans. We just weren't integrated. We were not really we were not encouraged to spend any time together in any meaningful way.
No.
We didn't see each other as humans, for heaven's sake. I think we forget that sometimes.
And that's what I wanted to ask you now. Do you feel that in some ways, yes, okay, obviously apartheid is finished, etc., but do you feel that we're still sort of polarized in some ways? Do you think there's much more?
We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I think we are constantly faced with, and of course the word these days is challenges. There are constant new challenges. But I think what we need to remember on a bleak day is how far we have come. Because we really do forget. I know I forget. And I know a lot of youngsters, a lot of the millennials maybe don't even have a clue how it was when you talk to them about, different buses for different race groups, different benches, different toilet facilities, different everything. No, it was insanity, to be honest. And I don't think we should ever forget that.
No, and we shouldn't, absolutely.
And that's not to say we make excuses for bad behaviour now, like governments and things like that. But just as South Africans, we should try and respect and like each other a bit more.
Well said. And I mean, wish that would be the case throughout, wouldn't it? But
absolutely.
As I said, I don't think you should ever forget the past. You should respect it. But also, we've got to move forward and work together.
And
be a collective South Africa.
Be the best we can.
Absolutely.
Because, my God, we're amazing, actually.
Absolutely.
I say this as someone who's travelled the world and who loves coming home and is proud to be here and to be part of it. And
what does the future now hold for you and Manga Groove? And what's on the horizon for you?
Well, in the immediate future, we have a gig. May I publicise a gig?
Absolutely.
Anyone in
the whole year, if you like.
In Belito.
Belito, lovely.
July the 1st,
Fantastic.
which should be a great one. It's a beautiful part of the world. So anyone in Joburg who wants to come down to Belito, come and join us. I'm not sure what flight one. Come on our flight with us. And
hopefully Safia is listening.
Yes, hopefully Safia is listening, indeed. And then, probably... Well, we've got a new music video coming out, a new single with Kurt Darren, a song called And African Skies.
Okay.
He's the most beautiful singer.
Yes,
and it's a lovely music video, and we got on really
Very
well.
Very talented man, yes.
Yeah, so that's coming out quite soon, so hopefully you'll be seeing that on television and maybe even playing it on your station. Who knows, if you like it.
I will.
And then some grand schemes in the pipeline, sort of musical ideas and fashion and lifestyle ideas all floating around that we just need to sort of get cracking on. So, just the Mango thing is going to be a lifelong project for me and my fellow fellow mangoes.
Well, long may it continue as well. But
thank you very much.
And on your side personally, I mean, personal projects that you're going to be pursuing? I mean, besides the acting and voiceovers, what else?
Which I'm going to pursue thanks to you now. Oh, no, definitely I sort of like to get a range of something going, a lifestyle. And I'm obsessed with, fun stuff, beautiful things.
Yes.
Hopefully involving. And also a project I'm working on with a friend to do with educating kids about, well, not just about literacy, but just kids who've been abused or have come from, desperate situations. My childhood was quite rocky. So I'd like to start getting involved in helping children with that sort of thing. And my friend has written a book, and we're going to hopefully be working on that together.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of interesting things, which I'll have to keep you posted on once they've become real.
Please stay in touch with us and me, and and let me know, and I will definitely talk about it as much as I can and promote this fantastic work that you do and have continued to do and can do in future. I mean, it's what a legend to chat to you, and to obviously know how long you've been doing this for and how well you've been doing it, and the phenomenal voice and the phenomenal band that you guys are.
Thank you so much.
A real privilege to have you in today.
Thank you.
Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me on the Gareth Nelson Show.
Great pleasure. Look forward to the next one.
Yes, absolutely. I'll hold you to that.
You can.
We're going to play a brand new one now from Manga Groove. This is from the new album?
Yeah, album's called Faces of the Sun.
Faces of the Sun.
And this is a ballad, and it's kind of where we're at right now in our approach to the world. I think the world could do with a bit more kindness, not just South Africa, but globally.
Absolutely.
Globally, things are feeling a bit nuts.
And last thing, where can we find you on the social media platforms if people want to buy the music, if they want to go and get it?
Very good point. I think musically, we're on iTunes. I think we're on Deezer. We're on Spotify. Social media, we're getting slightly better at it, dragging ourselves into the 21st century, kicking and screaming. So it's Manga Groove is on Facebook. Yes. We're also on Instagram. It's called Manga Groove Official. I'm personally on Facebook as Claire Johnston. On Insta, I'm CJ at Manga Groove. Twitter, CJ at CJ Manga Groove. Yes. There we go.
And that's Johnston with a T as well, because I made that mistake, by the way. So,
no, it's been done 1,000
quickly
times.
Corrected me and said, no, that's not my name.
I'm really not fussed. I just know sometimes it's important for,
No, absolutely. Thank you for correcting me.
No.
She even corrected me this morning because I had listed the interview at 12:15, and she said, no, it's 12:30, because I thought she's on the ball. So
I'm turning into a harridan.
No, not at all. It's good. It keeps me on my toes. All right, so here's this fantastic song, Mango Groove Kind. Claire, thank you once again for joining me today.
Gareth. Great pleasure.
Beautiful song. That was the brand new one there from Mango Groove called Kind. And maybe you just heard there Claire saying that she should have brought the album because she was saying to me, because she was actually supposed to bring the new one, but she's instead brought me a greatest hits. So I'm quite chuffed with this, and I've got personally signed here, so I'm very, very chuffed with this. We'll have to
sort you out the new one. As I say, I was convinced I had one.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. So that's the brand new song there, Kind, and the other release that the song was called?
There's another song called From the Get-Go, but then the brand new one with Kurt, which is being released with a music video, I think, next week, with Kurt Darren, is African Skies, the cover of a Paul Simon song.
Oh, okay.
And sort of our version. And it's beautiful. I love his voice.
Yes.
Mine's all right, but his is amazing.
No, well, I have to disagree, but all right.
Go on.
All right, we're going to play out with a fantastic classic of Manga Grooves. This is one of my favorite. I think her voice on this one is particularly phenomenal. It's called Moments Away. Thank you, Claire, once again.
Thank you.